In the quiet coastal village of Porthcaris, nestled along Cornwall's rugged shoreline, Emma Thompson's life seemed as predictable as the tides. At 28, she carried the weight of her family's struggles like a well-worn fishing net. Her father, a local fisherman, had been lost to the sea 3 years ago, leaving behind memories as salty as the ocean breeze and a family struggling to survive. The small cottage where Emma lived stood just a stone's throw from the water's edge. Paint peeling and windows weathered, it was a testament to years of hardship. Each morning she would wake before sunrise, preparing for her job at the local marine research station, a modest position that barely covered her basic needs. On a particularly stormy evening, everything changed. The wind howled like a wounded animal, and rain lashed against the windows with fury. Emma was collecting water samples near an old pier, her hands steady despite the challenging conditions. Her waterproof jacket did little to protect her from the relentless storm, but she was used to working in tough environments. Something strange happened that night. As a massive wave crashed over her, Emma found herself unexpectedly calm. Instead of struggling or gasping for air, she breathed normally. The water seemed to flow around her, almost through her, in a way that defied everything she understood about human biology. At first, she thought it was a trick of her imagination. Exhausted and cold, Emma made her way back to her cottage, her mind racing. She stripped off her wet clothes and began to document every detail of what had just happened. Her hands trembled as she wrote in her research journal, sketching diagrams and noting her observations. Days passed, and Emma became obsessed with understanding her newfound ability. She began conducting careful experiments, always alone, always secretive. She would submerge herself in the bathtub, timing how long she could stay underwater. Minutes turned into hours. Her lungs felt different, stronger, more adaptive. The local doctor, William Parker, was her only confidant. An old family friend who had known her since childhood. He was cautious but intrigued. "We need to be careful," he would say, examining her with a mix of scientific curiosity and genuine concern. "No one can know about this until we understand what's happening." Emma's life became a delicate balance of research and secrecy. By day she worked at the marine station, collecting samples and processing data. By night, she investigated her own extraordinary condition. She read every medical journal she could find, searching for any hint of similar cases. The financial strain remained constant. Her mother, Margaret, worked extra shifts at the local bakery to help make ends meet. Emma felt the weight of their shared struggle, knowing that her research could be their ticket to a better life, if only she could understand it. Her small bedroom became a makeshift laboratory. Charts covered the walls, pinned between faded family photographs. Notebooks, filled with calculations and observations, sat neatly stacked on her desk. Each page represented a piece of a complex puzzle she was desperate to solve. The village noticed changes in Emma. She seemed more confident, more focused. Her eyes held a depth that spoke of hidden knowledge. Some locals whispered, was she different? Had something changed? But Emma kept her secret close, knowing that understanding would come before revealing. At night she would walk along the shoreline, feeling a connection to the water that went beyond anything she had ever experienced. The ocean seemed to call, to her a silent conversation that only she could hear. Her body felt different, stronger, more resilient. William continued to run discreet tests, drawing blood and monitoring her physiological responses. "Your cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen," he would say, his voice a mixture of excitement and caution. "We're on the edge of something extraordinary." Emma knew she stood at a crossroads. Her discovery could change everything. About human biology, about survival, about our understanding of human potential. But for now she would keep her secret, continue her research and wait for the right moment to share her incredible truth. As the waves crashed against the shore and the wind whispered its ancient secrets, Emma Thompson prepared for a journey that would challenge everything she knew about herself and the world around her. The small medical clinic in Porthcaris buzzed with quiet anticipation. Dr. William Parker carefully examined the slides under his microscope, his weathered hands moving with practiced precision. Emma's blood samples told a story that defied medical understanding. Your white blood cells are adapting in ways I've never seen, William muttered, more to himself than to Emma. She sat quietly, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her worn jacket. The early morning light filtered through the clinic's dusty windows, casting long shadows across the room. William had been her father's closest friend, and now he was her only ally in understanding her extraordinary condition. He remembered the countless fishing trips, the stories shared over hot tea, and the promise he'd made to look after Emma if anything happened to her father. Each test became a careful dance of scientific curiosity and discretion. Emma worked extra shifts at the local marine research station to fund their investigations. Her colleagues noticed her increased enthusiasm, her endless note-taking, but suspected nothing of her secret studies. At night, Emma would practice her underwater abilities in secret. The local quarry became her private laboratory. She would submerge herself, timing her breath, measuring her body's responses. The water felt different now, not just a substance around her, but something that seemed to flow through her very being. Her mother Margaret grew concerned. "You're working too hard," she would say, placing a plate of homemade pasties on the kitchen table. The worry lines around her eyes spoke of years of struggle since her husband's death. William's medical connections proved invaluable. He reached out to a network of trusted colleagues, carefully anonymizing Emma's test results. "Something extraordinary is happening," he would write in coded emails, "a human adaptation that challenges everything we know about marine biology." The local fishing community remained oblivious. Emma continued her work at the Marine Research Station, collecting water samples, tracking marine life patterns. Her colleagues saw her as dedicated, perhaps a bit odd, but nothing more. Each discovery brought new questions. Emma's body could extract oxygen from water in a way that seemed impossible. Her lung capacity had increased dramatically. Blood tests showed unusual cellular structures that adapted rapidly to different environments. Financial struggles continued to press down on her. The research was expensive and every penny counted. Emma took on additional work, night shifts at the local pub, weekend cleaning jobs, anything to fund their investigations. William began compiling a comprehensive medical file. Charts, graphs, detailed notes documented every aspect of Emma's unique physiology. "We need to understand before we can explain," he would tell her during late-night discussions. The isolation was challenging. Emma couldn't share her discovery with anyone. Her world became a careful balance of secrecy and scientific investigation. Friends wondered why she seemed distant, why she spent so many hours alone. Her connection to the ocean grew stronger. She could sense changes in water temperature, understand marine currents in a way that seemed almost supernatural. But Emma knew this was scientific, not magical. There had to be an explanation. Local fishermen began to notice changes in marine life patterns, strange migrations, unusual behaviors that they couldn't explain. Emma recorded everything, seeing connections that others missed. The small cottage by the sea became her sanctuary, walls covered with charts, maps, and research notes. Each piece of paper represented a step closer to understanding her unique ability. Margaret watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "Your father would have been amazed," she would say, her voice soft with memory. Emma knew her research was more than personal. It was a way of honoring her family's connection to the sea. William continued his careful investigations. "We're on the edge of something extraordinary," he would say, his eyes bright with scientific excitement. "This could change everything we know about human adaptation." As autumn approached, the investigations continued. The sea held its secrets, and Emma was determined to unlock them. Her ability was more than a personal mystery. It was a potential key to understanding human survival in changing environments. The waves crashed against the shore, a constant reminder of the world waiting to be understood. Emma Thompson stood at the edge of a discovery that could change everything, if she could just keep her secret long enough to prove it. The small village of Porthcaris was a place where secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. Whispers began to circulate about Emma Thompson, the quiet marine researcher with the strange reputation. People noticed things, little changes that seemed odd, but not quite impossible. Old Tom, who spent his days at the local pub, was the first to start talking. "Something's different about that girl," he would mutter into his pint. "The way she moves, the way she looks at the water, it's not normal." Emma tried to stay invisible, but curiosity was a powerful force in a small community. Her frequent trips to the local quarry, her late-night walks along the shoreline, the way she seemed to understand the sea in a way no one else did. These things did not go unnoticed. At the Marine Research Station, her colleagues began to wonder. Emma's work had always been exceptional, but now she seemed to have an almost supernatural understanding of marine ecosystems. Her reports were detailed, her observations precise, in a way that went beyond normal scientific research. Margaret Thompson watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. She knew the dangers of standing out in a small community. Gossip traveled faster than the fishing boats could sail, and Emma's unusual behaviors were becoming a topic of local conversation. Dr. William Parker became more cautious. Their secret. Investigations needed to remain hidden. "We can't draw attention," he would warn Emma during their private meetings, "not until we understand everything." The local fishermen were the first to notice real changes. Unusual marine life patterns, strange migrations that defied scientific explanation. Some blamed climate change, others talked about mysterious ocean currents. But Emma knew the truth was far more complicated. Children in the village began to tell stories. "Emma can stay underwater forever," they would whisper during playground games. "She's different from everyone else." Adults would shush them, but the stories continued to grow. At the local market, Margaret overheard conversations, hushed voices, sideways glances, speculation about her daughter's strange abilities. She would buy her groceries quickly, trying to avoid the curious stares and half-spoken questions. Emma's life became a careful balance. By day, she worked at the Marine Research Station, collecting samples, writing reports. By night, she continued her secret investigations with William. Each test, each observation brought them closer to understanding her unique condition. The village's social dynamics began to shift. Some viewed Emma with suspicion, others with a mix of fear and fascination. She was no longer just the daughter of a lost fisherman, but something more, something different. Local fishermen started to notice changes in their catches, unusual fish behaviors, unexpected migrations. Emma's research notes became increasingly valuable. Though she kept her true capabilities hidden, William became more protective. "We need to be careful," he would warn her during their secret meetings. "Small communities can be unforgiving to those who are different." Margaret's worry grew. She remembered the stories of her husband, how he had always been different, a fisherman who seemed to understand the sea in ways others couldn't. Now her daughter was following a similar path. The pub became a center of speculation. Old Tom would share his theories, each story more elaborate than the last. "There's something about that Thompson girl," he would say, his voice low and conspiratorial. Emma continued her work, trying to remain invisible. But in a small village, invisibility was nearly impossible. Every action, every unusual behavior became a topic of discussion. Her connection to the ocean grew stronger. She could sense changes in water temperature, understand marine patterns in a way that seemed almost impossible. But Emma knew this was scientific, not magical. The community watched and waited. Whispers continued, stories grew, speculation ran wild. Emma Thompson had become more than just a local marine researcher. She had become a mystery waiting to be solved. As autumn approached, the village held its breath. Something was changing, something was different, and at the center of it all was Emma, a young woman with a secret that could change everything. The sea continued to crash against the shore, holding its own mysteries waiting to be understood. London's Marine Research Conference was not prepared for Emma Thompson. The sterile conference room buzzed with anticipation as she set up her presentation, her hands slightly trembling, but her eyes burning with determination. Professor Robert Hartley watched her carefully. He was a respected scientist with decades of marine research experience, and something about Emma's preliminary notes had caught his attention. The file on his desk contained unusual data, impossible cellular adaptations that challenged everything. He knew about human biology. Emma's presentation began quietly. She spoke about marine ecosystems, cellular adaptation, and the potential for human physiological changes. At first, the audience seemed unimpressed. Senior researchers exchanged subtle glances, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and mild boredom. But then something changed. Her slides showed extraordinary evidence, cellular structures that could extract oxygen directly from water, physiological responses that defied current scientific understanding. Each piece of data was meticulously documented, each conclusion supported by careful research. Professor Hartley leaned forward. His years of scientific experience told him this was more than just another research presentation. This was something extraordinary. Questions began to fly. "How did you discover this?" one researcher asked. "What mechanism allows such adaptation?" another demanded. Emma remained calm, explaining her findings with a clarity that belied her young age. Her research had begun in a small coastal village, but now it stood at the center of potentially groundbreaking scientific discovery. The room transformed from skeptical to fascinated, whispers growing more intense with each slide. William Parker sat in the back of the room, watching carefully. He had helped Emma prepare, had been her silent supporter through years of secret investigation. Now he watched her shine. The scientific community was not an easy world to impress. Researchers were trained to be critical, to challenge every assumption. But Emma's presentation was different. Her data was solid, her conclusions carefully supported. During the lunch break, Professor Hartley approached her. "Your research is extraordinary," he said, his voice quiet but intense. "We need to discuss this further." Emma's life had been a journey of struggle, financial challenges, community suspicion, personal isolation. But in this moment, everything changed. Scientific recognition was within her grasp. The conference organizers requested a private meeting. They wanted more details, more understanding of her incredible discovery. Emma's research could potentially revolutionize our understanding of human physiological adaptation. Back in her small hotel room, Emma called her mother. "Something amazing is happening," she whispered, her voice filled with hope. Margaret listened, tears in her eyes, remembering the struggles they had faced together. Professor Hartley's research team became interested. They wanted to conduct more tests to understand the full extent of Emma's discovery. Funding possibilities emerged, research grants, potential scientific publications. The marine research world was about to change. Emma's discovery suggested humans might have untapped physiological capabilities, especially related to marine environments. Climate change research, marine survival strategies, everything could be impacted. William arrived in London, supporting Emma quietly. He had been her first believer, her first scientific ally. Now he watched as her hard work transformed from a secret investigation to potential global scientific breakthrough. News began to spread quietly through scientific circles. Researchers spoke in hushed tones about the young marine researcher who might have discovered something extraordinary about human biological adaptation. Emma's life had been defined by struggle, losing her father, working multiple jobs, conducting secret research. Now, everything was changing. Scientific recognition was no longer a distant dream, but an emerging reality. The conference hall buzzed with excitement. Emma Thompson, a young researcher from a small coastal village, had potentially changed everything scientists understood about human biological potential. As evening fell over London, Emma looked out her hotel window. The city lights reflected in her eyes that had seen something extraordinary, that understood the ocean's secrets in a way no one else could. Her journey from a struggling marine researcher to a potential scientific pioneer was complete. The sea had always been her home, her research, her passion. And now the world was ready to listen. The scientific community would never be the same again. The Research Foundation stood as a testament to Emma Thompson's incredible journey. Located just outside her hometown of Porthcaris, the small marine research center represented more than just a building. It was a symbol of hope and transformation. 3 years had passed since her groundbreaking presentation in London. Emma's discovery had changed everything. Her unique ability to understand marine ecosystems and human physiological adaptation had opened doors she never imagined possible. Funding came from unexpected sources. International marine research organizations, environmental protection groups and scientific institutions all wanted to support her work. The small cottage where she once struggled to pay bills was now a distant memory. Margaret Thompson watched her daughter with pride. The woman who once worked multiple jobs to make ends meet was now a respected scientific researcher, leading a team of dedicated marine biologists. Her discovery had not just changed her life, it had the potential to change the world. The research center focused on marine conservation, human adaptation, and understanding the complex relationship between humans and ocean ecosystems. Emma's unique physiological abilities provided insights that traditional research could never achieve. William Parker remained her closest ally and mentor. Now semi-retired, he continued to support her research, proud of the scientist she had become. Their weekly meetings were filled with scientific discussions and shared memories of their long journey. Local fishermen, who once whispered about her strange abilities, now saw her as a hero. Her research had helped protect marine life, understand changing ocean conditions, and provide new hope for coastal communities struggling with environmental challenges. International conferences invited her to speak. Scientific journals published her groundbreaking research. Emma Thompson had become more than just a researcher. She was a symbol of human potential and scientific discovery. The Foundation's work expanded rapidly. They developed new technologies for marine conservation, created programs to protect endangered marine species, and explored human adaptation to changing environmental conditions. Emma never forgot her roots. A significant portion of the Foundation's funding went back to her local community. Scholarships for local students, support for fishing families, environmental education programs. She was determined to give back. Her personal journey became an inspiration. A young woman from a small coastal village who transformed scientific understanding through determination, hard work, and an extraordinary gift. Schools began to tell her story, encouraging young scientists to pursue their dreams. The ocean remained her greatest teacher. Emma's connection to marine environments continued to grow. She could understand marine patterns, predict ecological changes, and provide insights that seemed almost magical to other researchers. International recognition followed. Awards, scientific honors, invitations to global research initiatives. But Emma remained humble, always remembering the small cottage by the sea where her journey began. Her mother's bakery in the village became a local landmark. Visitors would come to hear stories about Emma, to understand how one person's dedication could change everything. Margaret would smile, sharing stories of her daughter's early struggles. The Research Foundation became more than a scientific institution. It was a beacon of hope, a place that showed how human potential could be unlocked through curiosity, determination, and a deep connection to the natural world. Climate change researchers found new hope in Emma's work. Her discoveries suggested that humans might have untapped abilities to adapt to changing environmental conditions. Her research offered potential solutions to global environmental challenges. William often reflected on their journey. From secret investigations in a small medical clinic to international scientific recognition, they had traveled an incredible path. Emma had transformed from a struggling researcher to a global scientific leader. Local children in Porthcaris now looked at the sea differently. They understood it as a place of possibility, of potential, of incredible discovery. Emma had changed not just scientific understanding, but how people viewed their relationship with the ocean. Her story spread beyond scientific circles, magazines, documentaries, inspirational talks. Emma Thompson became a symbol of how individual determination could create global change. As sunset painted the ocean in brilliant colors, Emma stood at the research center's window. The sea that had been her greatest mystery was now her greatest ally. Her journey from a small coastal village to international scientific recognition was complete. Hope, transformation, and the incredible potential of human discovery, Emma Thompson, had shown the world that anything was possible. The ocean continued to crash against the shore, holding its secrets, waiting to be understood.